Señor presidente, muchísimas gracias por acompañarnos en Fox Noticias. Este es un momento realmente histórico. Es un honor tenerlo con nosotros y le haré las preguntas primero en español para nuestra audiencia y luego en inglés. Ha estado en cargo alrededor de 100 días. Han pasado muchas cosas. De todas las cosas que has logrado, ¿de cuál se siente más orgulloso?
Well, I think the thing that people now realize is the border is 100%. It's like literally 100%. It's perfect now. I don't know if you can top perfect, but it's going to get better. And by the way, we want people to come in, but they have to come in legally, and everybody agrees to that. And they will do that. We need people. We need people for all the industry that's being created. And I think just generally that there's a mood that our country was ripped off by other nations for many, many years, and they understand what I'm doing. They're really getting it. We're making tremendous amounts of money, taking in billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs from other countries that for many, many decades just ripped off the United States. And it's time that we not allow that to happen. So, but we've done many, many things, and we're happy about it. We just had a big chunk of the big, new, beautiful bill passed, which are the biggest tax cuts in history, and also the biggest regulation cuts in history. And I think we're well on our way to getting that. That's going to be a big deal when we get the big, beautiful deal. We call it the big, beautiful bill. When we get that passed, that'll be big tax cuts for everybody and other things.
¿De dónde obtiene tanta energía?
A lot of people ask me that question. I've always said energy is genetics. I had two great parents. They had a long-term marriage, a very, very long-term marriage. I'll never beat them at that. So one thing I'll never beat them. We don't have enough years left. But they had a great relationship, but they had great energy. And my father died at just about almost 94. And he was a very strong guy. And my mother, likewise, she was a wonderful woman, but she lived a very long life, and she had a tremendous sense of energy, and she had energy inside and out. I mean, she was the life of the party. And I think that's where it comes from. Yeah. I think that's where it comes from generally. I could say probably the same for you.
Yeah, genetics.
I think genetics is a big answer. Even, when people have a friend, his mother died at 49 from a heart attack, and his father died at 50, and he's 60, and he's walking around saying, I'm not supposed to be here. But, and he's not a particularly nice person, so I say, maybe you're right about that. But no, genetics, a big factor is genetics.
Yeah, I agree. Acaba de reunirse con el presidente de El Salvador, Bukele. ¿Cree que el acuerdo con Bukele podría servir como modelo para manejar a los criminales violentos peligrosos, sean ilegales o no?
Well, first of all, we had a great meeting.
Yeah.
Much longer than I planned because I found him to be very interesting. And I've known him. I knew him from the first term. And he was very young then and very smart. And he's only gotten better. And he's done a phenomenal job for us. And we work together very closely. And, he took they call it the crime center of the earth or something, El Salvador. Now it's a very safe, it's considered a very safe
murder
place.
Capital of the world.
Yeah, it was really, it had a terrible little ring to it. I said, really? But he's made it a very safe place. People go and they feel very secure and safe. He's also built one, but other also prisons, very big ones. And we're using his system because we're getting rid of our criminals from out of the United States that were allowed to come in by Biden. When you think about it, it's so hard, Rachel, to even believe. He opened up the borders and he let criminals from all over the world just pour into our country. It's not even believable. You think, I always say party of common sense or whatever, but it's not even believable. They came from all over. They came from mental institutions. They came from gangs and from drug dealerships. I mean, we have some of the biggest drug dealers in the world that he just let into our country. We have people coming from jails of all. I mean, think of it. They emptied their jails into the United States. We're getting them out. And the president is helping us with that, President Bukele. So I was very impressed with him, really very impressed. Great guy.
Could we use it for violent criminals, our own violent criminals?
I call them homegrown criminals.
Yes.
I mean, the
homegrowns.
The ones that grew up and something went wrong and they hit people over the head with a baseball bat. We have, and push people into subways. just before the train gets there, like you see happening sometimes. We are looking into it and we want to do it. I would love to do that.
Okay. Todavía hay preguntas sobre el ilegal que vivió en Maryland. ¿Sí o no será retornado a los Estados Unidos?
As you know, the Supreme Court, after we get out all of the fake news from CNN and all these other people, we won that case 9-0. And basically, that's really a decision that will be made by the government of El Salvador, because that's where, I assume that's the one you're talking about.
Yes, he's from El Salvador.
Staying there, and he's from El Salvador. So that's a decision up to El Salvador. Okay. But it's interesting because we won that decision 9-0 in the Supreme Court. And if you listen to the news, you wouldn't know that.
Right.
You would really have no
Fair
idea.
enough.
So it's up to El Salvador.
Okay. Durante la campaña entrevisté a un mexicano que llegó aquí ilegalmente hace más de 20 años. Tiene hijos americanos y me dijo que aunque es ilegal y no podía votar, apoyaba a su candidatura. Esta es su explicación.
Como todo padre amoroso que quiere un buen futuro para su familia, pues yo quiero que Estados Unidos le vaya bien. Quiero que tenga una administración que luche porque la inflación baje, porque la economía mejore, porque detenga las guerras. La cualidad de Donald Trump es que sería un buen administrador respecto a la economía estadounidense. Es que va a presionar a las compañías norteamericanas para que no se vayan al exterior y creen sus empresas aquí en Estados Unidos para que le den empleo a los estadounidenses. A excepción de que a alguien se le comprueben crímenes, o sea, a un delincuente, estoy absolutamente de acuerdo que se le regrese a su país. E incluso si yo cometiera crímenes, pues que me deporten.
Él ha estado aquí por 20 años trabajando duro, criando una familia. En cuanto a deportaciones, ¿debería Galacio ser tratado distinto a los inmigrantes ilegales que llegaron durante el era de Joe Biden?
Well, from an actual standpoint, no, but from a practical standpoint, yes. I look at this man, I say, this is a guy that we want to keep.
Right.
I mean, I'll probably take heat for saying it. Everybody wants everybody. That's a good man I could see it just by looking at that question. So, and I don't know that he said, is he supposed to be deported? No, he didn't say that. Good.
No, and I think that's the question people have.
Good.
Right now, it's just illegal criminals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and perhaps those who came during the Joe Biden 4 years, because they obviously weren't well vetted. But what about somebody like Galacio?
So, well, I don't think he's in any danger of it. And that makes this question a lot easier because if you said they're ready to pick him up and move him out, that would be a much more difficult question because he's a fine person.
Yes.
And we don't want to do that. We want our great people to stay. One of the things I am doing, though, is I'm also making it easier on the farmers and the hotels and everything because you have a lot of farmers that they're not going to be able to, do their crops and pick up the corn and do all of the things that they do so incredibly well. So we're making it so that if a farmer can give recommendations to people, we're going to be very soothing in terms of perhaps letting that farmer have, they're sort of responsible.
Yes.
And we're going to have the farmer take responsibility. But, ultimately, at some point, we want the people to go out, come back as legal. We're going to send, as you probably know, we're doing a self-deportation. And we're going to make it comfortable for people. And we're going to work with those people to come back into our country legally.
¿Está funcionando la autodeportación?
Well, we're starting it. We haven't started it right now. We're getting the murderers out. We have our total aim on the very bad ones, as you can imagine, because you have some great people that came in. But we have some very bad ones. We had 11,088 murderers. Half of them killed more than one person. Mm-hmm. These are rough, bad people. We want them out. And that's mostly our focus. Yeah. But what we want to do is we're going to have a self-deportation program, which we haven't even announced yet. I guess I'm announcing it to you. Why not, Rachel? Here it is. The only thing I haven't determined is what are we going to do? We're going to give them a stipend. We're going to give them some money and a plane ticket. And then we're going to work with them. If they're good, if we want them back in, we're going to work with them to get them back in as quickly as we can.
Amazing. Ahora está militarizando tierras federales en la frontera sur. Los cárteles nunca han sido tan ricos ni tan fuertes. Desde que usted cerró la frontera, la violencia ha aumentado porque los cárteles están luchando por menos territorio, menos recursos y ingresos. ¿Cuál es su plan para enfrentar a los cárteles mexicanos?
So we're working with Mexico. Mexico is, I think, very, very afraid of the cartels, actually. I think the cartels run large sections of Mexico, and I don't want to say that because I'm getting along very well with the president.
40% of the land mass in Mexico is controlled by the cartels.
Maybe at least.
At least.
Okay, at least. It's hard to believe. I'm dealing very nicely with your new president, with the new president, who's a very fine woman, I have to say. The relationship is very good. And we want to help her, and we want to help Mexico, because you can't run a country like that. You just can't. They've made a fortune. Now, I will say it's been cut back, way back, because of the border. The border is very, very secure right now. And we didn't need legislation. We needed a president to say, that's it, no more people coming in. And the other day, you probably saw the statistic. It was like for a long period of time, 9 people, and they came in because they had a medical problem. Well, we actually took them in because one of them had a heart attack, one of them had something else. No, the border is very secure. We're going to make it a longer border. I built 571 miles of wall, which nobody likes to talk about, but it's the way it is. And I had to take the money because the Senate and the House, they were not in a giving mood. So I took the money out of the military. I called it an invasion. It's an invasion of our country. And it really worked. Walls work. Remember when they said, the Democrats would say, you don't need walls. Well, two things work. What are the two things? Walls and wheels. They'll never change. Yes. Everything else is obsolete immediately, but walls and wheels will never change. And we have a very secure border right now.
¿Las aranceles van a reemplazar el income tax o los impuestos sobre la renta?
You're the only one that's asked me that. Oh, I deal with all these big financial geniuses. Nobody ever. There is a chance that the money from tariffs could be so great that it would replace. In the old days, about 1870 to 1913, the tariffs were the only form of money. And that's when our nation was relatively the richest. We were the richest. They formed a committee in the 1880s of very distinguished people to get rid of, they had to get rid of money. They had so much money, they were making so much money. And this committee's sole purpose was how to dispose of it, who to give it to, what do we do? And then brilliantly in 1913, they went to the income tax system. Then in around 31 or 32, they tried to bring back tariffs, but it was too late, the country was gone. And they love to blame tariffs for the Great Depression. But the Great Depression came before they put the tariffs on. They love to do it, right? You know that. Yeah. They're always talking about, well, didn't you have... No. Great Depression started in 1929. Around 1931, they brought back tariffs, but it was, that, as the expression goes, that sucker was gone.
Yeah, yes.
¿Cuánto you dinero? Ever notice, they always talk about it?
Sí.
They brought it back after the Depression.
¿Cuánto dinero estás ingresando con las tarifas?
Billions and billions of dollars, and hundreds of billions of dollars over a period of a year. Before, I gave a little bit of a pause to lower just a little bit because, it's a transition. You have to have a little flexibility. But we were making $2 billion and $3 billion a day. We never made money like that. Your question is the greatest question. No financial reporter wants to ask me. It could replace the income tax. That's the kind of money we're talking about.
Pues prometió que no habría impuestos sobre las propinas, ni sobre las horas extra, ni sobre el seguro social. ¿Podría cumplir o vas a cumplir con esas promesas?
And a mortgage deduction or an interest deduction on cars. If you buy a car, we're trying to... All I can say is we're trying like hell.
Yeah.
Okay, it's really not... If it's up to me, 100% I can promise. But I have some strange people I deal with, and we have to get it approved. But the no tax on tips I love. No tax on overtime is incredible. No tax on Social Security for the seniors is great. And the deduction of interest. You buy a car, and if you buy the car, and it's only if it's made in America, otherwise who cares, right? But and more factories are moving back. I think you see that. Everybody sees it. A lot of people don't like talking about it, but everybody sees it. We have record number of car factories coming back, and other factories too. You just saw today on the computer chips and all of the things related to computer. You see what's going on?
Yes.
It's crazy, even beyond my wildest expectations. But the answer, the question is that, will I try and do those three things? Plus, I would like to add the interest on cars if it's made in America. I'm trying like hell.
I love it.
I think we'll be successful.
Tan pronto como asumió el cargo, comenzó a hablar sobre el Canal de Panamá. ¿Cuál es exactamente lo que quiere que pase con el Canal de Panamá?
So maybe it's happening already, but we said we didn't give that canal. It was a ridiculous, stupid thing that was done. Jimmy Carter gave the Panama Canal, one of the most profitable, the eighth wonder of the world, the Panama Canal. He gave it for $1 to Panama. Thank you, Jimmy Carter. That was a great investment.
It's not the art of the deal.
That's not the art of the deal. That's the opposite to the art of the deal. The Panama Canal was the single most expensive thing ever built. It cost, like modern day money, $1.8 trillion. It's never been anything so expensive. And it ran unbelievably profitably, but our prices were much lower. He gave it to them. The following day, they increased the rates by 4 times, and it didn't stop one ship. Then they raised it again by 2 times. Anyway, it makes a fortune. We don't like the way it's run, and we don't like the China influence. It seems like the China influence has gotten... You know, when we looked at that a year ago, almost every single flag and every single statement was written in Chinese, okay? I said, we didn't give it to China. We gave it to Panama. We shouldn't have given it to Panama. And we're working with Panama right now. We're going to make a determination as to what to do about it.
Okay. Panamá anunció recientemente que no renovará su acuerdo de Belt and Road Initiative con China. ¿Deben los países de Latinoamérica tener que elegir entre los Estados Unidos o China?
Well, maybe in a certain way. I saw what Panama did, what others are doing and maybe thinking about doing. Maybe. Okay. They should do that, yeah.
Okay. Elon Musk dice que su equipo identificó a inmigrantes ilegales que votaron usando números de seguro social que les dio el gobierno de Joe Biden cuando cruzaron la frontera. ¿Los va a acusar y procesar?
Well, we're going to look at that. There are a lot of people. You know, it's nice to say yes, but there are thousands and thousands of people. And maybe the ones that should be prosecuted are the Democrats who did it. They didn't do that for election. They did that for money.
Right.
More than election, I think.
Venezolanos les robaron las elecciones. Maduro no es el líder legítimo. La oposición ganó por mucho. ¿Cuál es el plan para manejar esta situación?
Well, we just did secondary sanctions, as you know. You saw that, tariffs in a way.
Yes.
But secondary sanctions on the oil. And basically anybody taking oil from Venezuela is not allowed to, in any way, shape, or form, come into the United States and deal with the United States in trade. And I never saw boats go so quickly out of a harbor. So we'll see. And we're looking at Venezuela very, very carefully.
Okay.
And that election was rigged. There's no question about it.
No question. Pues hablando de integridad electoral, muchos latinoamericanos están preocupados de que los Estados Unidos haya interferido en sus elecciones en Latinoamérica a través de USAID. Afortunadamente, tú bien sabes que usted cerró esa operación. ¿Se compromete a exponer públicamente la interferencia electoral por parte de nuestro gobierno a través de los NGOs financiado por nuestro gobierno?
Well, I love this question, and I'm proud that you have the courage to ask it. And the answer is yes, we are going to do a lot having to do with elections. You need strong borders and you need good elections or you don't have a country. Those two things. And then you need other things like a free press. But you need those two things to start off with.
Right.
And we're going to do that. And USAID was a disaster. The money was given away by the tens of billions, by the hundreds of billions of dollars. And it was given away by a corrupt U.S. government and people that work for the U.S. government. And, yeah, we're looking at that very strongly. It's a very, very powerful thing. Elon, his people were the ones that found this out. And they've done a great service to our country.
Yeah, I know that many Latin Americans would it's like they know what happened, and they know it. They want you to expose it.
Everybody knows.
Yeah.
Now, the one good thing is that this term, I call it the third term, right? I just don't want the results of the second term.
Yeah.
But we won it 3 times, but I don't want the results because it was terrible. What they've done to the border, when you think of it, what they've done to this country with the wars, Russia, Ukraine would have never happened. October 7th in Israel would have never happened. Therefore, you wouldn't have hostages to worry about. You wouldn't have had anything because Iran was broke. They had no money. They couldn't give it to Hamas or Hezbollah. But that would have never happened. The Russia-Ukraine would have never happened. The worst embarrassment in the history of our country, I believe, the Afghanistan withdrawal, the way we withdrew. I think it was the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. Wouldn't have happened. You wouldn't have inflation. And I could name about 25 other things, but you don't have the time, especially in 2 languages.
Yes.
But it's so horrible what took place. And some people don't want to mention it. But you know the other thing? The Democrats keep talking the same way they did. They still want to have men and women's sports. I was watching a news program today, and there was a congressman. I won't reveal his name because he was a nice guy, but he's so foolish. And he was fighting the announcer, asking the question, demanding that men be allowed to participate in women's sports. I said, this guy, is he serious? It's just hard to believe. And that's one of many things. I mean, transgender for everybody, open borders. How about open borders? Open borders, let the entire world pour into our country from prisons and everything else, but let the entire world, and it's not South America, it's the whole world, from the Congo is one of the biggest prisoners from the Congo jails pouring into our country.
Yeah.
Who would allow this to happen? It's such a violation, so sad to see what happened. But I will say that by doing it this way, it's a much more important presidency than it would have been if it was more standard. Mm-hmm. It's really become a historic presidency. And unless I answer a question very badly for you, we're going to keep it that way, Rachel.
Right. That's right. You feel like you're wiser for having gone through the 4
Yeah, I do.
years?
I think I'm wiser. Nobody had any idea that something could be so corrupt. You know, nobody talked. In the old days, we didn't talk about like a corrupt election. You have an election, you assumed it was right. Turned out to be a total, like a scam. It's a scam. But when you think about it, how else can they win? Open borders, transgender for everyone, the thing with women's sports, men playing in women's sports. I mean, you ever see the records of weightlifters? The difference between a man and just in lifting weights. But it's also dangerous. They have men boxing women. You saw what happened in the Olympics. 2 guys were in, 2 guys won, and they decimated their opponents.
Right.
It's so crazy. Yeah. And, you know, great women athletes who really, to me, it's demeaning. It's just demeaning to women. Yeah. But they're on those kicks. I actually tell Republican politicians, don't complain, wait till before the election, because maybe they'll change it.
Esto fue lo que yo le pregunté a usted este verano pasado sobre devolver la transparencia al gobierno. If you were president, would you declassify, you can answer yes or no to these, would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah. I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
Sé que Judicial Watch está demandando para obtener acceso a los archivos relacionados con, por ejemplo, Jeffrey Epstein. ¿Nos puedes dar un update?
Yeah, I would say just release it. He was somebody that was, I guess you'd have to say, notorious. Mm-hmm. And I would say release it. And I did release the full Kennedy files. You know, people said, well, maybe not everything. And I said, if anybody has a problem, go to the office. We gave them an office address, and they can look at every single piece of paper we have. And other files. And as you know, the January 6th and all of that, we freed the people. They were treated so badly. There's never been, I mean, there have been some pretty bad instances, but there's probably never been anything like what happened with the people from January 6th, who were largely, and there's always exceptions, but largely great patriots for this country. And so many people were happy with that. You know, I did that, and I let them out. I gave them their freedom. They were treated worse than murderers. They were treated, I mean, people murder. They don't even go after them.
Yeah.
They know they're there. They know where they are, where to pick them up. They don't even pick them up. They went after these people so violently. And so I took care of that. I took care of a lot of situations. I remember your last show, that show.
Yeah.
With the two very good people alongside of you.
Yeah, that was
and I think
fun.
I took care of every one of those things.
Yeah.
But I would do that, yeah.
What about J6? I'm sorry, what about the pipe bomber?
Yeah.
Ellos son terroristas. Esa persona que puso eso es un terrorista. Entonces, ¿cuándo vamos a saber quién era esas personas?
It's amazing when they don't give you the information. When they don't, you know they're not on the right. The pipe bomber is not a person on the right, it's a person on the left, okay? And, you know, when I watch some of those people in the Capitol, our people don't carry ropes on their side and, you know, this and that. Our people aren't scaling.
Are you going to get to the bottom of it? People
well, we're going to try. Yeah, we're going to try. And hey, look, the Unselect Committee of Political Thugs, these horrible people, Democrats and two of the worst Republicans in history, crying Adam and Liz Cheney, two of the worst. They are just sick people. This was the committee. And it went for a year and a half. At the end of a year and a half, what did they do? They destroyed every piece of evidence they had because it came out totally on our side. Nancy Pelosi was responsible for the security. She knew that. She proclaimed it on her daughter's tape. I mean, her daughter's a videographer or whatever the hell she does. And she had Nancy saying that she was responsible for it.
Yeah.
They burned everything. And then Biden gave them all apart. And these are Congress people. These are people that are in Congress, not respected members of Congress, but they're in Congress.
Yeah.
If you did that in a civil thing,
I know.
but think of it, they burned, deleted, and destroyed every single document after a year and a half because, like the person that said, I grabbed this massive Secret Service agent around the neck, and I was rebuffed. And then I went to the other one, and I think he was like this big karate guy, and I went over there. And I had friends that say, don't have it changed. It's so cool. You know, I said, no, I just want the truth.
That's right.
But they burned all that information. And I think she recanted. You know, I've heard she recanted her. And after 2 years, she said, no, it didn't happen. Isn't it a shame, though, huh? Isn't it a shame? I view that as being so egregious. And then what did Biden do? I don't know, him or the AutoPen. Whoever operated the AutoPen was really the president, because I don't know. But Biden gave them all their freedom because they were dead. I mean, they literally... And you know how they announced it? It was like a little sentence in a document that nobody saw but me and a couple of others. It said, for the sake of clarity, we have decided to destroy all documents, destroy and delete all documents having to do. So they worked for a year and a half, making everybody's life miserable. They realized that they were guilty as hell. You know, all those secret agents, Secret Service agents, they honestly testified. They testified in a very honest way. And everything was wrong for them. And rather than exposing what they did, the criminal acts, they created a criminal act, and they did it like a really bad. But could you imagine if I deleted and destroyed all documents from? And this is a hearing, a big deal that was set up that shouldn't have been allowed to go forward. And that's it.
Yeah.
So we can't even go after them because they were pardoned.
Right.
No, we're dealing with very corrupt people. We have a lot of corrupt people in our government.
En el libro que salió recientemente sobre su campaña, se llama Fight, hay un momento en que Susie Wiles se emocionó después de uno de sus juicios, y ella dijo esto, dijo, tengo miedo de que si no le atrapan de esta manera, intentarán matarlo. Tenía razón, lo hicieron, le dispararon 2 demócratas este verano, uno tenía vínculos con Ucrania y su hijo Eric dijo que el otro fue cremado más rápido que un perro doméstico. Está decidido a encontrar las respuestas sobre quién estuvo detrás de su intento de asesinato.
Yeah. And so far, they're all saying it was like a couple of nut jobs.
Do you believe that?
I don't know. You know, the one person had 18 telephones. I have a lot of phones, but that's like 3.
Yeah.
And they're made for special reasons. I don't know what to believe in it. I really don't. They did cremate him. His father went out and hired they weren't rich people. They were probably middle income. Mm-hmm. He's got the ultimate law firm, a white shoe law firm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh. And this was in Butler. So they went to Pittsburgh and they have a lawyer that, IBM would hire.
Right.
Where did he get these, this person? The other one had, the original one, the one from Butler, had 3 apps, and 2 of them were foreign-based. And I'll be honest, it has not been explained to me perfectly by other Secret Service or the FBI. We have 2 good people running that, and I would like to hear the explanation. Yeah. Even if it's not released to the public, I should be allowed to hear it.
Amen.
And I might very well release it to the public, but I wouldn't say it's been suitable yet. Who has 18 phones, and why were 2 of the other ones, and why they cremated him? You're right, very quickly. It was all gone. So you and I will be talking about it maybe in the future.
I hope so. Entrevisté a un rehén que usted logró librar durante el ceasefire entre Israel y Hamas. Él es de Argentina y está muy agradecido con usted. Sin embargo, su hermano sigue en cautiverio. Está desesperado para que su hermano regrese a casa y sabe que la guerra está complicando su regreso. Escuche esto.
Primero que debo decirle al presidente Trump es gracias, porque yo soy muy consciente que si hoy estoy aquí vivo y hablando contigo, es gracias a los esfuerzos del presidente Trump y toda su administración. En eso no tengo ni la más mínima duda. Y lo segundo es que el tiempo avanza y se acaba. Para los rehenes, cada segundo puede ser el último en el que estén viviendo, el último segundo de la vida. Están con captores locos que en cualquier momento pueden tomar un arma y dispararles. La misma gente que el 7 de octubre violó, mató, asesinó civiles inocentes, son los mismos que hoy tienen secuestrado a mi hermano y a otras 58 personas. Cada segundo es vital.
¿Cuál es su mensaje para él?
Well, I know him, and he's a great guy, and his brother's in, and he's been really shaken up by it, and just a fantastic, pretty young guy. And his brother, I asked him and 10 other people. We got out quite a few, but there were 10 came into the Oval Office, and I asked them, how many are there? They said 59. And I said, well, that's good. They said, well, only 24 are living. It's wild, right? Mm-hmm. So in other words, how many? They said 59. You've been hearing that number, 59 a lot. It's 59. But as of today, 24 are living. But I've also spoken to parents who know that their son, in this case, I think all sons, are dead. Mm-hmm. But the mothers are saying, almost more importantly, we have to get the body of our son, as though the son were alive. It's amazing. It's so tragic. But think of it, because I spoke to him specifically, and he said, there are 59, but 24 are living. Yeah. It's incredible. So we're working really hard to get him out. At the same time, some big things are happening, as you can imagine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you believe that his brother will come out? Do you believe that you will?
I think he's got a good chance. I hope so. I mean, we're trying to.
Yeah.
We're trying to. We're going out of our way, because a lot of people would say, look, we have to go and do what we have to do. We're trying very hard to get him out. We got quite a few out, but it's very time-consuming. They let 1 out. They'll let 2 out or 3 out. Sometimes they'd be okay, and sometimes they're in really bad shape.
Yeah.
Really bad shape.
Yeah, the war is definitely complicating their...
I asked him one question, and he was in the group. 10 people came to the White House to thank me. It was really nice. I said, when you were captured, how was it? They said, almost indescribable. They almost couldn't talk about it, but they were kept in a pipe. You know, you hear caves, but it's really not a cave or a tunnel. It was a pipe, and the pipe wasn't much taller like than that. A fairly large pipe, but not a pipe where you can stand up in. And they were there for a long time, and they thought they were going to run out of air, et cetera, et cetera. I said, during the time that you were there, one was there for like 500 days and 300 days. And I said, did you ever have any, were there any people like said, hey, wink at you, like, don't worry, you're going to get out.
Yeah.
Or here's a little extra bread or an extra meal or something. Was there any of that? No. I said, didn't some, like out of hundreds of people, didn't somebody wink at you and say, like, you're going to be fine, we're going to get you out of here? No. You know, the Holocaust, as bad as it was, there were a lot of stories where people got helped. Yeah. They said there was zero. He said, all we got was slapped. We didn't get helped. We got slapped. Yeah. And there was no love. There was no warmth. There was no nothing. Yeah. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. It's why he's so sad. He's so sad for his brother. El año pasado, Joe Biden celebró Trans Visibility Day en el domingo de Pascua. Este año usted anunció que la Semana Santa será un tiempo de oración y adoración en la Casa Blanca. Ahora tiene una oficina dedicada a la fe y la libertad religiosa de aquí, adentro de la Casa Blanca. ¿Cuál es su mensaje?
It's just a beautiful time of the year. And I remember that with Biden.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Look, he was the worst president in the history of our country, and we've had some bad ones, but there was never anybody like this. I don't even know if he was president because he didn't know where the hell he was.
Was Jill running the White House?
You know, look, she was certainly involved because he gave her the last meeting to preside over with the cabinet meeting.
Was she the auto pen?
No, I don't think so. She was. They had a lot of bad people. They had a lot of radical left lunatics in there, and I think he was perfect. He was perfect for them because he didn't have a clue. I think it was probably revealed at the debate, maybe more. I think if he didn't have that debate, he would have gotten through, and we were up by so much. Well, how does it feel? Now you're leading and you spend a lot of money and, you know, Kamala's not even somebody you're thinking about. All of a sudden you're running against somebody else. But she was grossly incompetent also. Yeah. I mean, the two of them, you had to beat two people, not one. It's like you're winning by 35 points on one, and they said, oh, well, we'll get that one out, we'll give you a new one. But it all worked out well. I tell you what, this has been an amazing presidency. I think I know we have done far more than we ever could have. If the election were normalized and we went on to a second term, we wouldn't be able to do the kind of things we're doing right now.
I agree. Here's my last question for you, and you've been so generous to me, and I'm really grateful for that.
That I agree with.
Yes, you have been so generous.
I have Ohio State.
I know, okay, I'll hurry.
I have these 6'9" guys that weigh 390 pounds waiting for me.
Okay, last question, I promise, Mr. President. Señor Presidente, usted es tan exitoso. Usted es la personificación del sueño americano, el sueño que tantos hispanoamericanos quieren para ellos mismos, para sus hijos. Ellos identifican con tu ética de trabajo, con tu pasión para los negocios y tú eres un emprendedor. Ellos también se sienten igual. Todo lo que tú tocas se convierte en oro. ¿Cuál es tu secreto? ¿Qué consejos darías a los hispanos que también quieren alcanzar ese sueño americano?
So first of all, the Hispanic people have been supportive of me like no other candidate, but certainly no other Republican candidate, which is a little bit new. I got a call from a great gentleman, the governor of Texas, who told me, and he told me very strongly, he said, you want every single town and city along the border to Mexico, and it's never happened before, nor has it even come close to happening. He said it's not since Reconstruction. By that he meant, I said, you mean by the Civil War? That's a long time ago. He said, you want every single town, Spanish-speaking town, all along the border of Texas and everything, and beyond. And I said, thank you very much. They're great people. They work so hard. They are very, very entrepreneurial, always have been, always will be. See, that's genetics, too. Yes. You know, we talked about genetics before. That's genetics, too. And they like me, and I like them. I love them. They love me, I think. You know, yes. It's been great. That's one of the reasons we won by so much, the Hispanic vote. But you know, when it comes to, a lot of people ask me why, and the theme of this was Make America Great Again.
Right.
And it's so easy because just in a nutshell, I just have to say it, Make America Great Again. That's why I'm doing it. We have a chance to be really great. I think we're starting to be there very soon. You're seeing what's happening. People have said, if you didn't win, this country was going to fail. It was going to fail. It was financially and otherwise, it was going to fail. Maybe even worse in so many other ways with all of this horrible stuff that they made you believe. Our country was going to be a big failure, and it wasn't going to be long. And, you know, the theme of the campaign is Make America Great Again. And it has been from the day I started. And we're doing it. And that's why I'm doing it, because we've had tremendous success. Even if you look, it's only been a couple of months. I guess we're very close to 100 days, actually. Mm-hmm. And in this short period of time, we have made such an impact. We're respected all over the world again. We were laughed at. We had a man that it was just horrible what he was saying, the way he was. He couldn't walk upstairs. I don't want to be insulting, but it was a little embarrassing, okay, to put it mildly. And the president's really a reflection on the country. Mm. And he's the worst. He was the worst. He was a horrible, I don't think he was a nice person, but nobody really ever it doesn't matter. I mean, frankly, you just want somebody that does a great job. Mm-hmm. But we're making America great again, and that's why I'm doing it. And I think we're doing really well. And it's an honor to be with you. You've been with me from, I think that's why the Hispanics like me so much. You've been with me from the beginning. And your husband, by the way, is doing a fantastic job at transportation. He has learned more about roads and railroads and airplanes than anybody I can imagine. He's doing a great job.
Señor presidente, le quiero enseñar cómo decir, vamos a hacer a los Estados Unidos grandioso again. Mr. President, I'd like to teach you how to say, let's make America great again in Spanish. So, vamos a hacer América grande otra vez.
America grande.
Grande otra vez. Otra vez.
America grande otra vez.
Excelente. Muchas gracias, presidente Trump.